Two, please. We're ready? We're going to get going. Yes, Marie, agus tá fáiltear roid gach duine. Tá áthas orm a bheith an seo, tradóna seo, ag seoladh Gabriel Lark le Vincent Moran. I'd first like to thank the management and the staff at the White House for so generously making this venue available to us this evening. My name is Dominic Taylor, and I'm delighted to welcome you here on behalf of the Limerick Writer Centre for the launch of the debut novel from J. Vincent Moran, Gabriel's Lark. The book is published under the Limerick Writer Centre Community Publishing Programme and is the 80th title we have published since we began our publishing activities in 2008. There are a couple of special things about tonight's book launch. First of all, it is a welcome return to the White House, a place intimately connected with the literary and cultural life of the city. And I'd like to personally thank the manager, Ciarán Quish, for welcoming us back after an absence of 3 years, for a culture and a literary event in this famous old pub. Secondly, we are launching a book tonight by an ex-Limerick Leader journalist, and I suppose you could say the White House is intimately connected with the Limerick Leader also, and not just as a watering hole for its journalists. One of its previous editors, Michael Fitzgibbon, was the husband of a renowned owner of the pub, Ita Fitzgibbon, a name that can still be seen on the front of the building here, and whose efforts to encourage writers and artists to frequent the pub established its long association with arts and culture in Limerick. Now let me say also that I'm delighted to welcome the current editor of the Limerick Leader, Eugene Phelan, to officially launch the book in a few minutes. Now before we hear from Eugene, I'd like to say something about the work of the Limerick Writer Centre and the small independent publishers. I believe that small independent publishers play an important and vital role in the life of our communities. Small independent publishing houses are run by people who do books because of their passion or belief and because of a love of writing, books and literature, certainly not because of the profits they might generate. Large conglomerate publishers who dominate the marketplace are not run by literary editors, but by marketing people. The result, as author Edna O'Brien remarked recently, that real literature is on the decline and being marginalised. Books from these publishers have in many cases become mere adjuncts to the world of the mass media, offering light entertainment, and has also spawned the rise of celebrity-driven publishing. But it is heartening that there are still small publishers who can still contribute to the spread of ideas that can reach the human mind and perhaps spark new thoughts and new ways of understanding the world we live in. I think it is important today that we remember and celebrate the work of these presses and the authors they publish. Books are still a powerful form of dialogue between individuals and communities. The technology of the book may be old, but it is still cutting edge. We should also question how well they are supported by local and national art bodies. Given that one of the key objectives of the Limerick Writer Centre is the democratisation of literature, democratisation in the sense expressed by Pablo Neruda, the Chilean Nobel Prize-winning poet who said that poetry, and I think we can include literature in general here, is like bread. It should be shared by all, by our vast, incredible, extraordinary family of humanity. I believe that we should show support for small independent publishers because, if I may quote a line from Seamus Heaney, we publish books that can still catch the heart off guard and blow it open. And I'm certain that the book that we are launching tonight can do that. This evening, we celebrate the publication of a new book from a Limerick publisher and a Limerick author. But we also celebrate creativity itself and how it moves us into the world of the imagination and how it can be a deliverance from the cold, grey, analytical and scientific view of contemporary life. I believe It does, as the psychologist James Hillman noted, move us from the fiction of reality to the reality of fiction, to the mythological and the transcendent quality of the soul. I want to say a word also about the author Vincent Moran. Many of you here will know him from his days at the Limerick Leader. Indeed, he was a pioneering journalist involved in many campaigns to improve the lot of the citizens of Limerick. From being one of the first to campaign to make the city wheelchair friendly back in the early 80s, the fruits of which we could see now on every street corner, to his groundbreaking investigative journalism on exposing the machinations of the state in its effort to deny William Geary justice. And we can see from more recent events, nothing much has changed, and that the work of journalists is still vital to maintain a democratic and open society. Let me also say that Vincent has brought that pioneering spirit to other aspects of his life, having lived and worked in various places around the globe. He is also a genuine writer. This may be his debut novel, but he is a man who has put hours into mastering his craft. In this novel, Gabriel's Lark, and I won't say too much about the story itself, he brings us on a rollicking adventure to the Europe of the 70s and 80s, proving, in the words of the psychologist Carl Jung, that life is crazy and meaningful at once. I'd like to welcome Vince back home to Limerick on the occasion of the publication of this book. I'm delighted now to welcome the editor of the Limerick Leader, Eugene Phelan, to officially launch the book.
Thank you.
Very much. I must say I'm disappointed with everybody here. I was told it was formal dress. Am I the only No, actually, this is a very important occasion, so I said I'd get my very, very best suit on tonight. And Vince and I go back. I hadn't met Vince I joined the Limerick Leader in 1975. Now, those were the days when I can see there's a few people around my own vintage. The Royal typewriter. Do you remember those magnificent typewriters?
Yes.
And you had to thump those typewriters so hard to just get some little print. So Vince joined a few years later, and I must say, even though I hadn't seen him in 35 years, you become friends for life. I think when you work in a place like that, we worked together for 5 years, and he came in. Vince had come from New York, and he had this lovely accent, which he still has. It's half Irish, half American, and so his dad. Many you might know this. Vince has a good pedigree. His dad was Vincent Moran as well, who was making a lot of the headlines in the Leader at the time. He was a headman in the ITGW, which was the transport union, and became SIP2 afterwards. And so Vince was came in, and in those days we had it was a lovely team. There was Brendan Halligan, the editor, who one day he's still around and he's in Spain. He was very encouraging to Vince. Vince was kind of a campaigning journalist, as you mentioned earlier on, before we even knew what campaigning journalism was. And I mentioned a few of the things he did. But Vince, there was the likes of Cormac Liddy, who's a great character. There was Dick Nocton, who used to come in to work every day. He was the old-fashioned journalist to come in at around 11 o'clock and go for his few pints at 5. And we'd all go to the White House. Was a great spot, actually. I remember the great vat, the whiskey vat upstairs. It's absolutely magnificent, fantastic. So, there were different times, but it was great. And I'm so delighted to see Vince. I mean, just looking at it, I just have to look at his CV. It's incredible. Vince went all over the world, and I got as far as City Hall. And it's funny the way your life can change and go all over the place. And we've had some fantastic. I've been very, very fortunate to work with some fantastic journalists, and it's fair to some of them became very famous. One of them you might have heard of course, is Fergal Keane. Now, Fergal joined the BBC. He worked over with Nelson Mandela at the time in South Africa. Became very famous. He got an OBE. But before that, Vince, who is a classical guitarist as well, and I'm very disappointed not to see his guitar here tonight. But Vince is a classical guitarist, and Vince and Fergal used to play in a little group together, blowing all jackbox. And they were very, very. There was about 10 drunken journalists, and one one drunken journalist taking the money at the counter, who went off and drinking all that. I don't think he ever saw any much money, but anyway, I'm looking up at my script now. So one of the things I was just saying here, a lot of people mix up journalists and writers. There's a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
Big difference, yes there is.
Oh, yes, there is.
So like, Charles Dickens was a journalist and a writer, and you'd Ernest Hemingway. Yeah. But very few people, I know I'm just a journalist, but to become a journalist and a writer, it's quite exceptional. It's different. They're two, people just think, a journalist is a writer. They're not. But Vince, I've had the pleasure of reading the book, and if I start talking about it, I love his language. I love the way he's written it. It's beautiful. It's centred in Limerick. It's the character in it is a fascinating character. I can see it being made into I'd love to see it being made into a film. It could be great. I don't know what actor you'll get for it, but there's a lot. I think he took some of the characters that he worked with in the Limerick Leader or definitely in there, because there's a lot of this guy likes his pint of Guinness and a lot more. So, but it's very well done. And as I was just saying, Vince has worked all over the world, and he's been in the USA, Australia. Now his CV is very impressive. He holds a master's degree by research and thesis from the University of Canterbury, and that's for his book-length comparative of Oscar Wilde and Bernard Shaw. That's quite impressive. So he also has first-class honours bachelor's degree in English from the City University of New York. Now he won virtually every literary award you could at that university, and he has a stack of journalism awards. I didn't realise he was so successful until I was reading. I asked him for his CV, and fantastic. And I'm amazed. If you stayed on, you'd definitely be editor of the Leader. You'd be well. You'd have done very well.
You believe it all.
It was mentioned earlier on, because I remember, it's amazing that you could remember some of these stories. I can't even remember half the stuff I've written myself, but I do remember going back this story that Vince wrote about William Geary, who was a retired, he was actually had to retire, he was forced to retire. He was a superintendent in the Guards. This was the most fascinating story. And Vince got into it, and my God, did he get into it. He worked on this, did about 12 stories. Just to give you, we're going back to 1928 now, so that's a long time. This Guard superintendent had to leave the police force. He was disgraced. He was supposed to have been an informer to the IRA, and he was a disgraced guard, and he left. He contacted the Limerick Leader, and Vince, my God, he put so much into it. And only for Vince's work, that man, all he wanted to do was die exonerated, and he was. And that's thanks to Vince, mainly to Vince's work. RTE came after the story afterwards. We're going back a long time now, but he did a fantastic job in that story. And your wheelchair, I remember another time he was put in a wheelchair, and Lady Dunraven brought him around town. And he was a campaigning journalist when there wasn't such a thing as campaigning journalism. So you were well before your time. I'm not going to tell you his age. I couldn't believe how his age. He's fantastic. He looks about the same age as me, and I'm just 60, but he's not. And he looks whatever you drink or whatever you do.
105. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just talking off the cuff. I was in O'Mahony's, I passed O'Mahony's just today, and it was fantastic to see that the book is in the front of O'Mahony's window. Right. And when I went in, it was even better. It's up in the bestsellers list already. So it is. It's actually up there. So I think it's a great read. I hope it's made into a film. I really do, because Fellini needs a break. There's an awful lot of books out there now. Everybody's writing books. I mean, it is. And thanks to the Writer Centre here in Dominic. I mean, you've 80 publications. That's fantastic. 80 of those books would probably not have come out only for yourselves. So that's well done to you, and you're doing fantastic work. I see a lot of talented people here today, from artists to writers, and it's great that there's a nice, cosy atmosphere here. It's lovely. And well done, Vincent. I'm sure you'd want to say a few words, and I think it's. I will say I don't want to say I don't want to go into the book because it would ruin the whole thing. But it is a great read, especially in the middle of it, and there's some great. The character Gabriel in it is a fantastic character. Not the best person in the world, but anyway, so I.
Thank you, Eugene. Appreciate it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, after all of that, I just don't know what to say. I'm completely overwhelmed by the compliments that have been hurled at me from Dominic and from my wonderful ex-colleague Eugene. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for extolling me and making me feel as I'm 10 feet tall. I'm speechless, really, but all I want to say is that hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back here in Limerick, my hometown, the town that I left, but the town that never left me. Limerick is in my heart and my soul and always will be. It's absolutely wonderful to be here. I can't express that more deeply. It's just incredible when I look out and I see friendly faces, see family, former colleagues, and it's just absolutely overwhelming. And basically, I mean, everything Eugene said about my campaigning journalism may be true, but I'm really a very shy, introverted person. I'm not great at speech making like my old man was. He was this trade union official, and he could hold thousands spellbound, with his public speaking and persona. And I see Dermot looking at me out here again. Sorry about the emails, Dermot. Dermot emailed me. Dermot Lynch, he's one of my great colleagues who was on that trip when I was doing the William Geary investigations. And Dermot used to drive like a rally driver down those old country roads all the way into Kildime or wherever the hell it was, scaring the life out of me. But we managed to get the stories done anyway. Despite my journalistic experience, and especially the memorable ones I've had in the Limerick Leader, I have tended to, over the years, hide my light under a bushel. And now, folks, I am exposed like I've never been exposed before. I stand naked before the crowd, but it really is truly wonderful to be here, and I can't express that more deeply. So thank you all for coming. I believe I'm amongst friends, a few enemies over there too, and some really harsh critics. But there you go. To have a book published is a truly wonderful experience, and thank you, Dom, and the Limerick Writers Association for doing that. It really is something seismic, to get a book published and get your name on it and get all this publicity and get all this adulation. I'm not used to being a celebrity, but I guess I am now, so I must accept it and bow to it and be grateful and be thankful, and I truly am. The Limerick Writers Association, from what I've read and what Dominic, my tireless advocate of literary promotion in this city, for local aspiring writers, etc., is something that surely should be supported, and it seems to me it is, and by the readership, but the local powers that be need to support it as well. And what I'm told, the Limerick City Council, for example, is not supporting as much as it should be. And I also understand that city councils like the Galway City Council is giving far more support to the arts than its Limerick counterpart. Now the question is, has anybody heard of a Galway writer? No. See, you're all looking at me. Nobody has ever heard of a Galway writer, but you've heard of Limerick writers, yeah? I mean, Limerick is awash in literary traditions, going back to Gerald Griffin, a street named after him, Michael Hogan, the Bard of Thomond, Kate O'Brien, and in more recent times, Frank McCord of Angela's Ashes, which Dominic did quite a bit to promote. And we mustn't forget the late, great and brilliant and world-acclaimed actor Richard Harris, who was also a poet extraordinaire. So we have just an incredible literary tradition in this country, in this city, and it really needs to be supported. And I urge anybody out there who has any influence, whatever, to promote that, to try to project that, and try to use our influence in whatever way possible. Because I think the Limerick Writer Centre is doing a marvellous job. It's doing an incredible job. And it needs, in fact, I would say a show of hands, perhaps. Everybody might put their hands together for the Limerick Writer Association right now. And everything that's on is their return. And then to get on to the Limerick Leader, yeah, Eugene, your expose regarding me was phenomenal, and I really do appreciate it. Perhaps you over-rigged it a little bit, you know. But anyway, I appreciate it, and I really enjoyed my time. I've worked in various newspapers around the world, but the Limerick Leader stands supreme in my journalistic experience, and I just loved writing the stories, campaigning, getting medical cards for people who are deprived, writing about rats in houses, and of course doing the profiles. I like writing the profiles, say, of the late great Jim Kenny, you know, who's just a political powerhouse in the city, a left-wing radical socialist who I identified with very, very much. And of course, I wrote so many stories in Jim that Cormac Liddy christened me the PRO for Jim Kenny, you know? Which something I didn't mind, you know. But Cormac also called me Lidles because there were a lot of solicitous letters to the newspaper, you know. And since I had returned from America, and I was driving an old banger of a car, a Ford Anglia, which my brother-in-law over there, Jude, got for me for a princely sum of about, what, £200 or something. The brakes went on the way down Cecil Street, and nearly crashed into the Limerick Leader offices. So Cormac then christened me Colombo, you know, as I came back from America. Mine is the wrinkled raincoat. But anyway, these are the memories I have of the Limerick Leader. It was really a wonderful place to work in. There was Brendan Halligan, who was the editor at the time. Very strict, very astute, very articulate editor. Always wore a pinstripe suit, and I thought maybe he should have been a solicitor rather than an editor. Anytime I wrote a story that was slightly controversial, he'd say, "Take that over to Mr. Sheehy, the solicitor, and get him to check it out for a libel." You know? So there you go. There was Mick Crow. He was another great character in Limerick. We did a profile on. And then there was, last but not least, Fonzie Renahan, who was a news vendor. He used to sell the newspapers, and Fonzie and I became great friends, you know. In fact, we were such good friends. And on one occasion, I was working on some assignment, and I just went off with Fonzie, and we had a couple of drinks, and I didn't get back to the office. And the following morning, there was a letter on my typewriter from Brendan Halligan. So you do that again, and you're dismissed. Anyway, we settled it over a pint later on, and the storm passed. So there you go. That's the Limerick Leader. You know, it was just a unique place to work in, and what I consider to be a unique city. And Limerick is, I think, in terms of Ireland, Limerick is really unique. And we should be getting more support and recognition for that uniqueness, you know. Well, that's basically it. I suppose I am now, according to my boss over here, Dominic, I've got to read something from the book, right? So, Gabriel, well, the novel, it was inspired by an organization called NaNoWriMo, which is short for National Novel Writing Month. It's an organization that encourages aspiring writers to write a novel in a month for 50,000 words. Well, I wrote many more than 50,000 words in 19 days, but I was polishing up for a good while after. And it basically was based on some people that I knew, who shall remain unmentioned, and a composite of characters, you know, which led me to draw this portrait of a kind of a rather reckless individual who was sick of domestic life, sick of marital life, of looking after children and so on, and he wanted to get away on a quest for freedom and pursue happiness, you know, as the Americans might say. But he got a little bit more than he bargained for, you know, and he was on the wrong side of the law many, many times, and to use his own phrase, he was banged up abroad, you know, but he was banged up at home as well. So anyhow, I guess I better read some of the book, yeah. But I'm giving too much away. Dom is looking at me there rather dubiously. Yeah. How much time do we have, Dom?
No, you're okay.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the section I'm going to read. Is about his Danish experience. Which he got on the wrong side of the law. He had previously been incarcerated for various transgressions, if you like, or crimes across Europe, in Germany, Holland, France, and indeed in Limerick itself. You know, in Denmark, having returned from Greece, he finds himself holed up with a crazy Danish businessman who's a drug addict and an alcoholic, and they're half starved during the whole period there. He's with his sidekick Sam, and they're trying to find a way out of it. But the bit I'm going to read is Gabriel being asked by this Danish friend of his, a guy called Carl, to drive Swedish tourists to the port of Copenhagen, and that's where I'll begin. So. Okay, sooner than expected, Gabriel found himself in Christiania again 2 weeks later, after Carl had asked him to drive 2 visiting Swedish friends of his to the port of Copenhagen. More relief, mused Gabriel, secretly delighted to be getting another break from Farum madness. Farum is a place outside Copenhagen. Sam, after some deliberation, stayed behind to share the burden of Carl's success. En route, the Swedes had expressed a wish to visit the colony for a quick puff, and Gabriel, with directions from a passerby, did the detour. Against these intentions, he drank 1 bottle of Tuborg Gold, and also smoked a little ganja, while the Swedes more liberally overindulged in the latter. "That's fantastic beer," Gabriel enthused when he finished the bottle. "So sweet, but in his case, a sweetness that would quickly turn sour around the next perilous bend in the road." As he drove the high-spirited Swedes to the ferry port, Bjorn, the younger of the two, said enthusiastically, "You must come and visit us one day, Gabriel. You would like our country. Lots of pretty girls, good beer, liberal laws." "I would love to go with you right now. Trouble is, I have no money," laughed Gabriel, before they embraced and parted 30 minutes later. But their high spirits had rubbed off. On the way out of the terminal, feeling rejuvenated again, and thinking that one day he might make it to Stockholm and all those beautiful girls, Bjorn mentioned Gabriel noticed a police officer standing by a squad car on the roadway. Nothing wrong with that, and nothing to do with him, he figured. He quickly changed his mind when he saw a raised hand apparently ordering him to stop, and he wondered if he was in some kind of trouble, though he couldn't for the life of him figure out what. "Maybe they don't like the look of me," he thought. "But here we go again anyway, what the heck." Winding down the window, he looked the officer squarely in the face and said, "Can I help you, sir?" "Driving license," said the officer coldly, in gruff, accented English. Gabriel fumbled for his license, and with some difficulty found it in one of his hip pockets. He handed it to the officer, who scrutinized it meticulously. Then, after a pause, he handed it back and in barely decipherable English grunted, Get out of the car, please. Gabriel was about to resist, but instead stepped out, amazed at what was happening. Another officer approached him, holding a familiar contraption, and without warning pushed it upwards towards his mouth. Blow into this, he ordered. A familiar bag had been produced, but Gabriel, who had imbibed just one bottle of tubered gold, was smiling confidently. No problem, give it to me, he said. I'm experienced, ha ha ha. The officer, apparently not understanding his tongue-in-cheek remark, repeated, blow. A sinister expression creased his face. I'll fix his wagon for him, thought Gabriel, echoing Sam's earlier antics in Germany. And like the runaway train coming over the hill, he blew, 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 and blew. Indeed, he could have blown forever and be absolutely sure that he was in no trouble with the law this time. But when he finally stopped blowing, the police officer recouped the bag, checked the reading, looked at Gabriel, half grinning, and stared. You have too much drink in you. It was as if the smirking Danish lawman had engineered a positive reading. Gabriel burst into loud laughter, the kind that was confident of a silly mistake being made. No way, buddy, he protested. I've only had one beer. You're all wrong. That machine is defective. What you say? Explain, please. Defective. That fucking bag, he pointed to it with an elegant finger. It not work good. It wrong. It very bad. No, the police officer responded defensively on getting the gist of Gabriel's words. Bag not fucking bad. Bag very good. You take too much drink. Machine, bag, it says so. It's a mistake, insisted Gabriel. It has to be. Deep lines creased his forehead as his eyes bulged in disbelief. I've only had one lousy bottle of tuber gold, one lousy bottle, for Christ's sake. It's no mistake, you above 80 milligrams of alcohol per 100 milliliters of blood. Gabriel was aghast, such a low limit. In Ireland it was 100 milligrams. He was about to tell them, but knew he'd be waiting his time since they wouldn't understand him. Besides, wasn't Ireland a nation of alcoholics? Here in Denmark, land of his Viking ancestors, the reading had reached 83, and after one beer, he was a criminal. He couldn't believe it. Diabolical. He listened in stunned silence as his rights were quoted. The charge was drunken driving. Though he couldn't understand a word of Danish, he had heard it all before. He had a right to remain silent, but anything said would be taken down and used in evidence against him. Such crap. Gabriel was kept in the cells overnight and spent several hours looking up at an unfamiliar ceiling, wondering how this had actually occurred. He still couldn't believe it. The following morning he was brought to the courthouse and escorted by 2 policemen to the appropriate chamber, a modest-sized room. Beside him sat a female interpreter, and above him on the bench a female judge, a stenographer to her left, and a court clerk to her right. The clerk read out the charge. The interpreter turned to Gabriel. You have been charged with drunk driving. How do you plead? She asked solemnly. Tell them I'm guilty, Gabriel replied sarcastically, seeing only absurdity in the charge. One beer. I'm Irish, for Christ's sake, land of alcoholics. But this more austere ancestral place didn't see absurdity or mirth in the charge that had been levelled against him. The judge threw him a sharp, looks good kill expression as the interpreter stared awkwardly askance. Wasn't this better than hanging around in Carl's place, half-starved and being bored to extinction? Mused Gabriel, now beginning to enjoy the experience. An embarrassed interpreter announced the Irishman's plea, guilty, Your Honour. After some moments, the judge handed the clerk a piece of paper. I'm to be shot at dawn, am I? Smirked Gabriel. The clerk read out the penalty. The interpreter interpreted. You have been fined 10,000 Danish kroners, or alternatively 10 days in jail. Which do you choose? Without hesitation, Gabriel retorted. Tell them I'll take the 10 days. The interpreter turned to the judge. The defendant has opted for the 10 days, Your Honour. Her revelation seemed to engender an air of disappointment from on high, and it brought immediate conferrals between judge and court clerk. Gabriel's curiosity aroused, he now gave the impression of a defendant seemingly without a care in the world, asked the interpreter what it was they were discussing. "Oh, they're just after saying it's now going to cost the state money," she told him, straight-laced. Gabriel burst into a laugh louder than intended. "Well, that's just too fucking bad, isn't it?" he exclaimed. "I wasn't in the slightest bit drunk. You lot don't know what the Irish are capable of when it comes to drinking. One beer, one bottle of fucking beer, a drop in the fucking alcoholic ocean, you can outfoot the bill for my accommodation and serve you right." A slight smile creased the corner of the interpreter's lips. She quickly cuffed it with her hand. "This is no laughing matter," the judge rebuked from the bench. "Be quiet, please, or I'll hold your client in contempt of court. Miss Jacobson, control Mr. Costello." "I apologize for my client's frivolity, Your Honor," the interpreter reacted, hoping the judge hadn't caught her smile. She quickly reverted to English. "And Gabriel, please control your laughter, Mr. Costello." "Sorry, mate." Gabriel got his 10 days, and it might have been double that if the judge had found him in contempt. But that would have meant double the expense for the state. Better to cut one's losses. Gabriel started to hum "That's Life" as he was escorted from the court to a waiting paddy wagon, a name once conjured up for Irish criminals by the British, and which would now convey another one to a Danish prison. The paddy wagon had little cells, compartments in which prisoners were strapped in. Gabriel took his place on his throne of shame and enjoyed the view. From his window he could see Copenhagen flashing by. What a beautiful city, he mused as they passed the Botanic Gardens and other fantastic sights like the Dufelsden Museum with its original works of the renowned sculptor, the Frederikskerke with its magnificent copper-sheeted dome, and the Christianberg Palace home to a constitutional monarchy. A bloody nice place to be sure, he marvelled, feeling more like a tourist than a prisoner. On a 10-day vacation. "Oh, wonderful, wonderful Copenhagen," he sang, mimicking Danny Kaye's version of the song for the movie Hans Christian Andersen, as the paddy wagon rolled merrily along to the prison gates. "They must be taking me on the scenic route," he quipped. "Might as well enjoy the journey." Well, that's basically it. But by comparison with his previous incarceration in Germany, Copenhagen proved to be by far the best and most comfortable Gabriel had ever experienced as far as prisons went. How ironic, he reflected, that he had to go to jail to find a job. Thank you. Thank you very much. Just to prove that crime does pay sometimes. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the end. Those who choose to purchase the book, that you enjoy the antics. Enjoy reading the antics of Gabriel as much as I enjoy writing them. And thank you again very much for coming here. And I really appreciate it. Eugene, Dominic, friends, family, former colleagues. Thank you again. Much appreciated. God bless.
When I'm cooking in the kitchen and I'm really on the phone, I'm trying to do too much. Things are going spoil.
I'm looking for a discount. I'm serious.
I don't.
I'm feeling no bullshit, no.
Voice comes on the radio.
It's dark in here. I take it. You see these more of the
I'm breathing deep, not climbing up my head, not trying to be better, and being true. These are things I ought to do, like being close to you. And when I'm sleeping on the mattress and